I caught my husband with my sister. My revenge took 6 months, and it was absolutely brutal. But before I tell you how I destroyed them both, let me tell you about the woman I used to be. The woman who trusted too much, who loved too deeply, who believed that family meant something sacred. That woman died the moment I opened the bedroom door and saw them together. What rose from her ashes was someone they never saw coming, someone patient, someone calculated, someone who understood that the best revenge isn't served hot, it's served cold, methodical, and so devastating they never recover. BR, my name is Catherine Morrison. I'm 52 years old. BR. For 28 years, I was married to a man named Richard Morrison. BR. We built what everyone called the perfect life, a beautiful home in the suburbs of Charleston, 2 successful adult children, a thriving family business, respect in our community. People looked at us and saw everything they wanted. What they didn't see was the rot underneath, the betrayal happening right under my nose, the lies being whispered in rooms I paid for. My sister Diane is 3 years younger than me. Growing up, we were close, or at least I thought we were. I was the responsible one, the one who took care of things. She was the wild one, the one who always needed saving. When our parents died, I'm the one who handled everything, the funeral arrangements, the estate, the bills. I gave her half of the inheritance, even though I did all the work. BR. I thought that's what sisters do. I thought family meant loyalty. BR. I was so incredibly wrong. Richard and I met when we were in our early 20s. He was charming, ambitious, hardworking. BR. He came from nothing and wanted everything. I came from a modest middle-class family that taught me the value of building something meaningful. Together, we started a property management company. It was my idea, my initial investment from a small inheritance from my grandmother. But I put his name on everything because that's what you do when you love someone. BR. You build together. BR. You trust together. You share everything. BR. The company grew slowly at first, then faster. We acquired properties, hired staff, expanded into 3 states. By our 20th anniversary, we were worth several $1 million. BR. Not billionaires, but comfortable, secure, successful. Richard handled the public face of the business. I handled the operations, the details, the actual work that made everything run. He got the recognition. I got the satisfaction of knowing I built something real. Or so I told myself. Diane never really settled down. She went through jobs like most people go through shoes. Retail, waitressing, receptionist work. Nothing ever lasted. She went through men even. Faster. BR. Married twice, divorced twice, always drama, always chaos, always needing something. And I always helped. I gave her money when she was short on rent. I co-signed loans she never paid back. I let her stay with you. During her second divorce, for 6 months, in our guest room, eating our food, using our resources, sleeping under our roof. That's when it started, I think. During those 6 months. I was working long hours at the office. Richard was supposedly doing the same. Diane was home alone most days, and some evenings when Richard said he was working late, he was actually there with her. In my house. In my guest room. Maybe even in my bed. I don't know all the details, and honestly, I don't want them. What I know is enough. I didn't suspect anything. Why would I? She was my sister. He was my husband. These were the 2 people I trusted most in the world. The idea that they would betray me was so far outside my understanding of reality that I couldn't have seen, even if they'd left signs everywhere. And they did leave signs. I just didn't see them because I was too busy working, too busy holding everything together, too busy being the responsible one while they were busy destroying my life. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March when I found out. I remember because Tuesdays were usually my office days, full schedule, back-to-back meetings. But that particular Tuesday, our biggest client canceled, something about a family emergency. Suddenly, I had the whole afternoon free. I decided to go home early, maybe surprise Richard, maybe we could have lunch together, reconnect. We'd been distant lately, or at least I'd felt distant. He seemed distracted, always on his phone, always busy. I thought maybe we needed to work on our marriage. I thought maybe I'd been neglecting him. I pulled into our driveway at 1:15 in the afternoon. Richard's car was there. That was unusual. He was supposed to be showing properties across town. I felt a small flutter of happiness. Maybe he'd had the same idea. Maybe he came home to surprise me, too. I walked up to our front door quietly. I don't know why I was quiet. Instinct, maybe. Some part of me that knew before my conscious mind accepted it. I opened the door with my key. The house was silent, but not empty silent. Occupied silent. I could feel the presence of people even though I couldn't hear anything yet. I walked through the foyer, through the living room, toward the back of the house where our bedroom was. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Low voices. The sound of intimacy, of comfort, of two people who knew each other well. My husband's voice. No possibility of innocent explanation. They didn't hear me open the door at first. They were too involved with each other. I stood there watching for maybe 5 seconds before Richard looked up and saw me. His face went white. I've never seen someone's face drain of color so fast. It was almost fascinating in a clinical way, watching the blood leave his cheeks, watching his eyes go wide, watching his mouth open but no sound come out. Diane sat up, grabbed the sheet, pulled it up to cover herself. She said my name, Catherine, just that. My name hanging in the air like an accusation, like I was the one who'd done something wrong by walking into my own bedroom. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things or collapse or do any of the dramatic things you see in movies. I just stood there, perfectly still, perfectly calm, watching them scramble for words, for clothes, for explanations that didn't exist. Richard got out of the bed. He was saying something. I could see his mouth moving, but I couldn't hear the words. There was a ringing in my ears, a loud static sound that blocked out everything else. I watched him pull on his pants, watched Diane wrap herself in my sheets, watched them both look at me with expressions I couldn't quite read. Fear, maybe. Guilt, definitely. But also something else. Defiance. Like they'd been caught, but they weren't actually sorry. The ringing in my ears stopped suddenly. Richard's voice came through clear. Catherine, let me explain. This isn't what you think. I almost laughed. That line, that pathetic cliche line, this isn't what you think. What else could it possibly be? What explanation could exist that would make this anything other than exactly what it was? But I didn't laugh. Oldn't imagined in ways that would hurt so much worse than anything they'd done to me. I drove to a hotel, not a fancy one, just a clean chain hotel off the highway. I checked in under my maiden name, Catherine Reynolds, a name I hadn't used in 28 years. The woman at the front desk didn't ask why I had no luggage, why my hands were shaking, why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. She just gave me a key card and directions to my room. I went upstairs, locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and I started planning. My phone had been ringing nonstop. Richard calling .br, Diane calling .br, text messages flooding in .br. I'm so sorry .br, please come home. We need to talk .br. Let me explain. It was a mistake. I turned the phone off. I didn't want their explanations. I didn't want their apologies. But I wanted silence. I wanted space to think clearly, to plan carefully, to make sure that when I moved against them, it would be devastating. I stayed in that hotel room for 3 days. I called my assistant at work, told her I had a family emergency, that I'd be working remotely for a while. She didn't ask questions. I ordered room service. I paced the small room and I made lists. Lists of assets, of accounts, of properties, of connections, of leverage points. I made lists of everything we owned, everything we'd built, everything they thought they had. And I made plans for how to take it all away. On the third day, I turned my phone back on B-bar, 67 missed calls, 43 text messages, .br voicemails I didn't listen to, .br. I called my lawyer, .br. His name is Bernard Fisher. He's been our corporate attorney for 15 years. .br, a good man, sharp, discreet, .br. I told him I needed to see him immediately. I told him it was about my marriage. He heard something in my voice because he cleared his afternoon schedule and told me to come to his office right away. BR, I showed up at 2 o'clock. Bernard's office is downtown, 10th floor of a glass building with views of the harbor. I sat across from his massive desk and I told him everything. I watched him take notes, watched his jaw tighten, watched him nod slowly as I explained what I needed. I need to know exactly what I own. I told him, I need to know what's mine, what's legally mine, what I can control. I need to know every option I have, every legal option, .br. I'm not interested in a quick divorce. I'm interested in justice. BR Bernard put down his pen. B looked at me with something like respect. Catherine, he said, if you want to do this right, if you want to protect yourself and make sure they don't get away with this, we need to be strategic. Bar, we need to be thorough. This isn't going to be fast. I told him I didn't care about fast. Bar, I cared about complete. Bar, he nodded. Then let's begin, he said. BR, we spent 4 hours in his office that day. He pulled files, reviewed documents, made calls to other attorneys who specialized in different areas. BR, family law, .br, business law, real estate law, .br. He brought in his whole team. By the time I left his office at 6 in the evening, I had a clear picture of exactly what I was dealing with. And it was better than I'd hoped. BR, the property management company, was registered in both our names, but the initial capital, the seed money that started everything, had come from my inheritance, .br, that mattered. The house was in both our names, but I'd made the down payment from my separate savings before we married, .br. That mattered too. Several of our investment properties were purchased with funds I could trace directly to my income, my work, my efforts, and best of all, Richard had been sloppy. He'd been signing documents, making decisions, moving money around without proper authorization. Nothing illegal exactly, but ethically questionable. .br, enough to build a case, enough to create leverage. BR Bernard gave me homework. .br, he told me to document everything. Every asset, every account, every property, every detail I could remember about how things were acquired, who paid for what, where money came from. He told me not to confront Richard or Diane yet. He told me to be pleasant, to be calm, to act like I was considering forgiveness while actually preparing for war. I'm going to need time, he said. BR, 6 months maybe. BR, can you hold on that long? Can you pretend everything is okay while we build an airtight case? BR, I looked him in the eye. I can do whatever it takes, I said. BR, and I meant it. BR, I went home that night. It was strange pulling into the driveway, seeing the lights on in the house, knowing Richard was inside, probably panicking, probably rehearsing whatever lies he'd planned to tell me. I sat in the car for a moment, preparing myself. Bernard's words echoed in my mind. Be calm, but be pleasant. Don't let them know what you're planning. I took a deep breath, checked my face in the mirror, and walked inside. BR Richard was in the living room. He stood up the moment I walked in, his face a mixture of relief and terror. BR, Catherine, thank God, BR. I've been so worried. Where have you been? I've been calling and calling. I set my purse down on the table. I looked at him with a neutral expression, the kind of face you'd give a stranger. I needed some time to think, I said. My voice was steady, cold, completely controlled. He took a step toward me. I held up my hand. Don't, I said. Just don't. He stopped. Catherine, please, we need to talk about this. What you saw, it was a terrible mistake. It meant nothing. It's been going on for a few months and we both feel horrible about it. But we want to make this right. I almost admired the audacity. BR, a few months. BR, like that made it better. like admitting to months of betrayal was somehow supposed to earn him points for honesty. Bye sat down on the couch. "Where's Diane?" I asked. "BR. She went back to her apartment," he said. "BR, she's devastated. BR, she wants to talk to you. She wants to apologize." "Bar, of course she does," I thought. "HT bar. Of course she wants to apologize now that she's been caught. Now that her free ride is threatened." I looked at Richard, really looked at him. This man I'd spent 28 years with. This man I'd built a life with, a business with, a family with. I tried to find something in his face that looked like remorse, like genuine guilt. But all I saw was fear. Fear of losing what we'd built. BR, fear of consequences. BR, not remorse for hurting me, just fear for himself. BR, I need time, I told him. BR, I need space to process this. BR, I'm not ready to make any decisions yet. Hope flickered across his face. "Bar, of course," he said quickly. "Bar, take all the time you need. Bar, I'll do anything. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever you want. BR, I'll cut off all contact with Diane. I'll prove to you that you're the only one I love." But the words sounded hollow, practiced, like lines from a script. BR, but I nodded. "I'm going to stay in the guest room for now," I said. "BR, I can't sleep in that bed." "But not yet." BR, relief washed over his face. He thought he was winning. BR. He thought I was considering forgiveness. He thought the worst was over, and now it was just a matter of time before things went back to normal. He had no idea that I was already 3 steps ahead, that every word I spoke was calculated, that every day I stayed was another day closer to his complete destruction. "Okay," he said. "Bar, whatever you need. Bar, I'm here. I'll wait as long as it takes." BR. I went to the guest room, by the same guest room where Diane had stayed, the same room where this probably started. I looked around at the neutral walls, the generic furniture, the space that held so many lies. I sat on the edge of the bed and I pulled out my phone. BR, I started a new note. BR, I titled it Evidence. And I began to write down everything I could remember, dates, times, suspicious behaviors I'd overlooked, strange phone calls, unexplained absences, all the little things that hadn't made sense at the time, but now formed a clear pattern. The next morning, I got up early. BR, I made coffee. I acted normal. Richard came into the kitchen, cautious, watching me carefully like I might explode at any moment. "Morning," I said pleasantly. "Bar, morning," he replied. Are you okay?" "Bar, I'm working on it," I told him. "I think we should try to maintain some normalcy. BR, for our own sanity. BR, for the business. Bar, we still have responsibilities." He nodded eagerly. "Bar, you're right. BR, absolutely. BR, we need to keep things professional. BR, professional. BR, that was the perfect word, because from that moment on, everything between us was a transaction. BR, every conversation was strategic. Every smile was calculated. BR, every moment of apparent forgiveness was part of a larger plan. BR, I went to the office that day. I smiled at our employees. BR, I handled meetings. BR, I reviewed contracts. And in between everything, I quietly started securing my position. BR, I met with our accountant. Her name is Margaret Chen, a brilliant woman who'd been managing our books for a decade. BR, I told her I wanted to do a complete audit of all company finances. Nothing dramatic, I explained, just routine due diligence. BR, we've grown so much, I want to make sure everything is properly documented and organized. She thought it was a great idea. BR, she had no reason to suspect anything else. Over the next 2 weeks, Margaret and I went through every financial record of the company. Every transaction, every account, every property purchase, every expense. BR, and I copied everything. BR, every single document. I created a complete backup of our entire financial history. BR, I discovered things I hadn't known, money moving in ways I hadn't authorized. BR, small amounts at first, then larger. Richard had been transferring funds into a separate account I didn't have access to, not huge amounts. Nothing that would trigger alarm bells, but over the years it added up. Nearly $200,000 that should have been business assets, sitting in an account with only his name on it. I documented everything. Br. I said nothing. Br. I also reached out to our children. Br. Michael and Sarah, both in their mid-20s, both living their own lives in different cities. Br. Michael worked in tech in San Francisco. Sarah was doing her medical residency in Boston. Br. I called them separately. Br. I didn't tell them what happened. I just told them I wanted to update our estate planning documents, make sure everything was properly structured. Did they have copies of their birth certificates, their social security cards, medical records? I made it sound routine, boring, the kind of thing a responsible mother does. They sent me everything I asked for without question. Br. I met with Bernard twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday. Evening, I went to his office. Br. I brought him documents, information, evidence. He built a case piece by piece. Br. He showed me how the law worked, what I was entitled to, how to protect myself. He also did something else. Br. He started investigating. Br. Quietly, discreetly. Br. He hired a private investigator, a woman named Patricia Cole, who specialized in infidelity cases. I gave her Richard's schedule, Diane's address, everything she needed. Br. Patricia was good. Br. Very good. Within 2 weeks, she had photographs. Br. Richard and Diane meeting at hotels. Br. At restaurants. Br. At her apartment. Time-stamped, documented, irrefutable. Br. She also discovered something I hadn't known. This wasn't the first time. Richard had been unfaithful before, years ago, with a woman who used to work for us. An affair that lasted 6 months before she quit and moved away. I'd never known. Br. I'd never suspected. How many others had there been? For how many years had I been living a lie? The rage I felt in that parking lot 6 weeks ago hadn't diminished. Br. If anything, it had grown stronger, colder, sharper, but I didn't let it show. Br. At home, I was cordial with Richard. Br. I let him think I was healing. I let him think we were rebuilding. I ate dinner with him. I asked about his day. I even laughed at his jokes occasionally. Br. He started to relax. He started to believe that he'd gotten away with it, that I was actually going to forgive him, that our life would continue. Br. Diane tried to contact me multiple times. Br. Calls, texts, emails. Catherine, please talk to me. Br. I'm your sister. Br. I love you. This is killing me. We need to work through this. I ignored most of them. Br. But after 2 months, I responded. Br. I agreed to meet her for coffee. She probably thought I was ready to reconcile. She had no idea what was coming. Br. We met at a cafe downtown. Br. Neutral territory. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, looking nervous. Br. She'd lost weight. Br. She looked tired. Good, I thought. Br. She should be suffering. She stood up when she saw me, opened her arms for a hug. I ignored the gesture and sat down across from her. Thank you for meeting me, she said. Her voice was small, tentative. I've been so worried about you. I ordered coffee from the waitress. Br. Then I looked at Diane. Br. Really looked at her. Br. My sister, my younger sister, who I'd protected, helped, supported for our entire lives, who I'd given money to, housed, defended when others criticized her choices. This was how she repaid me. By sleeping with my husband. Br. In my house. Br. In my bed. Br. How long? I asked. She blinked. What? How long has it been going on? I want the truth. All of it. She looked down at her coffee cup. Br. Almost 2 years, she whispered. Br. 2 years. Not a few months like Richard had said. Br. 2 years of lies, of betrayal, of them laughing at me behind my back. 2 years of family dinners where they sat across from me acting normal while carrying on behind closed doors. I felt that cold rage spread through my chest again, but my face remained calm. Tell me how it started, I said. She started talking. The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them in for so long and finally had permission to release them. It started during my second divorce, she said. I was staying with you, remember? I was so depressed, so lost. Richard was kind to me. He listened. You were always working, always busy with the company. He was just there. We started talking, really talking, .br. One night you were working late and we had wine and it just happened. I told myself it was a mistake, that it would never happen again, .br, but then it did. Again and again, BR, I listened without interrupting. I watched her justify it, rationalize it, try to make it sound like something that happened to her rather than something she chose. She talked about feeling lonely, about Richard making her feel special, about how they'd tried to stop but couldn't. She talked about guilt, about wanting to tell me, but being too afraid. Bar, she cried, real tears running down her face, her voice breaking. Bae, Catherine, I never meant to hurt you, but you're my sister, Bar, I love you. It just got so complicated. When she finished, I took a sip of my coffee. It was cold. I'd been sitting there for 30 minutes listening to her explain away 2 years of betrayal. Do you love him? I asked. She looked startled by the question. I don't know. BR, maybe. Bar, it's complicated. Does he love you? Bar, she shook her head. He says he loves you. Bar, he says I was just a distraction, a mistake. He wants to work things out with you. BR, of course he does, I thought, because I'm the one with the real power, the real money, the real stake in everything we built. Diane had nothing to offer him except the thrill of forbidden fruit. BR, but me, I was the foundation of his entire life. His business partner, his social standing, his financial security. BR, of course he wanted to work things out with me. I looked at my sister. She was waiting for me to say something, to yell or cry or forgive her. I did none of those things. BR, thank you for being honest, I said calmly. BR, I needed to hear the truth. BR, she looked hopeful. Does this mean, can we try to fix this? Bar, can we be sisters again? Someday, I said, BR, but I need more time. I need space. I'm not ready yet. She nodded frantically. Of course, BR, take all the time you need. I'm here whenever you're ready. I stood up. I have to go. I have a meeting. She stood too, tried to hug me again. I stepped back. Not yet, I said. She nodded, her face crumpling again. I left the cafe and walked straight to my car. Once inside, I sat there for a moment, letting the mask slip, letting myself feel the disgust, the anger, the absolute betrayal. 2 years, .br, 2 entire years. .br, every holiday, every birthday, every family gathering, they were carrying on this affair, lying to my face, .bar, making a fool of me. I started the car and drove to Bernard's office. .br, I had new information. I had confirmation. .bar, I had everything I needed. Bernard listened as I recounted the conversation. He made notes. This is good, he said. .br, very good. Her admission, even just to you, establishes the timeline. It establishes pattern and duration. .bar. It strengthens our position significantly. BR. How much longer, I asked. How much longer do I have to pretend? He leaned back in his chair. We're close, Catherine. .br. Maybe 2 more months. We need to finalize a few more things. .br. Property valuations, business assessments, forensic accounting on those hidden transfers. But we're building something airtight. .br. When we move, they won't have any ground to stand on. BR. 2 more months. I could do 2 more months. .br. I'd already done 3. .br. What was 2 more in the grand scheme of destroying them completely? I went home that evening. .br. Richard asked how my day was. Fine, I said. I had coffee with Diane. .br. His face went pale. You did? How did it go? It was hard, I said, but I think it was necessary. .br. I think I'm starting to understand what happened. I think maybe, eventually, I can forgive. The relief on his face was almost comical. Really? You mean at I nodded slowly. I'm not saying everything is okay. I'm not saying I trust you yet. But I think I want to try. I think our marriage is worth fighting for. He actually teared up. He came over and hugged me. I stood there stiffly, tolerating his touch, feeling nothing but contempt. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for giving me another chance. I won't let you down. I promise. You already let me down, I thought. You let me down in the worst possible way. But I just patted his back and stepped away. Over the next 8 weeks, I continued the performance. I went to marriage counseling with Richard. We sat in a therapist's office once a week and talked about rebuilding trust, about communication, about moving forward. The therapist, a well-meaning woman named Dr. Helen Price, had no idea that I was lying through my teeth. She thought I was genuinely trying to save my marriage. She praised my openness, my willingness to work through the pain. Richard ate it up. He thought he was winning me back. At night. After these sessions, I went home and documented everything. Every lie he told in therapy.br, every manipulation.br, every half-truth. I recorded some of the sessions on my phone. The therapist had given permission for personal reflection purposes. I saved everything.br. Meanwhile, Patricia, the investigator, continued her work.br. She documented Richard still seeing Diane. Not as frequently, but it was still happening. He'd told me he'd cut off all contact. He'd told the therapist he'd ended it completely. More lies. BR, more evidence. Bernard's team completed the forensic accounting. They found more hidden money. BR, more suspicious transfers. In total, Richard had moved almost $400,000 into accounts I didn't have access to. Money that should have been joint assets, business profits, investments. He'd been preparing his own exit strategy, skimming money for years, probably planning to leave me eventually, or maybe just keeping options open. BR. Either way, it was theft. it was fraud. It was exactly the kind of ammunition I needed. The property valuations came back. Our house was worth $1.2 million. The business, with all its properties and contracts and assets, was valued at nearly $8 million. We had investment accounts, retirement funds, real estate holdings across 3 states. On paper, we were worth approximately $11 million. Richard thought it was ours. He thought we'd split it down the middle if we ever divorced. He had no idea what was coming. I also did something else during those 2 months. I started building my own separate life. I opened new bank accounts in my maiden name. I moved money carefully, legally, from sources that were solely mine. I rented a small apartment across town, paid for a year in advance, under my maiden name. I furnished it simply. I created a space that Richard knew nothing about. A space that would be mine alone. The time came. I also reconnected with old friends I'd neglected over the years. Women I'd known before Richard, before marriage, consumed my identity. I had lunch with them, coffee dates, conversations that reminded me I was a person beyond being a wife, beyond being betrayed. One friend in particular, Janet Whitmore, became my confidant. She'd been through a difficult divorce herself 5 years earlier. She understood. I told her everything. She listened without judgment. She told me I was strong, that I was doing the right thing, that I deserved so much better. Her support meant more than she knew. It reminded me that there was life after this, that I could survive, that I would thrive. Finally, after 6 months of planning, of documenting, of pretending, Bernard called me into his office. It's time, he said. Everything is ready. We have all the evidence, all the documentation, all the legal structures in place. We can file whenever you're ready. I sat across from him, my heart pounding. What happens next? I asked. He smiled, not warmly, but with professional satisfaction. Next, he said, we execute. We file for divorce. We freeze joint accounts. We file an injunction to prevent him from accessing or moving business assets. We present evidence of infidelity, of financial misconduct, of breach of fiduciary duty as a business partner. We demand full control of the company, full ownership of the house, and repayment of all funds he moved without authorization. Far enough away from the blast radius, I went home. Richard was there, sitting on the couch watching television. He looked up when I came in and smiled. Hey, how was your day? Be normal, I said. Be yours? Same old, same old. Had a few property showings, closed one deal. He seemed relaxed. comfortable, completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse. I made dinner that night, lasagna, his favorite. We ate together at the kitchen table. We talked about mundane things, the weather, a news story, plans for the upcoming weekend. It was surreal sitting across from him, knowing what I knew, planning what I was planning, while he ate and smiled and thought everything was fine. After dinner, I told him I was going to spend the weekend at a spa retreat, a women's wellness thing that Janet had invited me to. I need some self-care, I said. Some time to recharge. The therapist said it would be good for me. He nodded enthusiastically. That's a great idea. You deserve it. Take all the time you need. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. I packed a bag in front of him. Clothes, toiletries, everything visible and normal. What he didn't see was the second bag I'd already packed and hidden in my car. The bag with documents, valuables, sentimental items, things I couldn't risk losing. Friday evening, I drove away from our house. Richard waved from the doorway. I waved back. I drove to my secret apartment, the one he knew nothing about. I carried my bags upstairs and locked the door behind me. Then I sat down on the couch and let out a long, shaky breath. This was real, this was actually happening. In 3 days, everything would change, everything would explode, and there was no going back. I spent Friday night organizing. I went through every document, every piece of evidence, everything Bernard and I had compiled over 6 months. I wanted to understand it all completely. I wanted to be ready for any question, any challenge, any conversation that would come. I barely slept. My mind was racing, playing out scenarios, imagining Richard's face when he got served with papers, imagining Diane's reaction when she realized the whole affair would become public knowledge. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me felt cruel. But the larger part, the part that had been violated and betrayed, felt nothing but cold determination. Saturday morning, I met with Bernard one more time. We went over everything again. The timeline for filing. The immediate actions that would be taken. The protection orders to freeze accounts. The business injunctions. He explained that Richard would be served with papers at home on Monday morning. He'd have 24 hours to respond. In the meantime, all joint accounts would be frozen. He wouldn't be able to access company funds without court approval. He wouldn't be able to sell property or move assets. Essentially, he'd be paralyzed financially while the legal process unfold. What if he tries to contact me? I asked. Don't respond, Bernard said. All communication needs to go through me from this point forward. He'll probably try to call, text, show up places. Don't engage. Let me handle everything. If he becomes threatening or harassing, we'll get a restraining order. But I don't think he will. I think he'll be too shocked, too busy scrambling to understand what's happening. I nodded. And Diane? Same thing, he said. No contact. Let her find out through the gossip mill. Let her read about it when the divorce becomes public record. Your silence will hurt her more than anything you could say. Saturday afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in months. Of all the reasons I was doing this, the lies, the theft, the betrayal, the disrespect. She reminded me that I deserved better, that I deserved everything I was about to take back. By the time we hung up, I felt steadier, more certain. I went to bed early Sunday night but couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark watching the clock. Midnight. 1 in the morning. 2. 3. At 4, I gave up and got out of bed. I made coffee. I sat by the window and watched the sun come up over the city. This was it. The last sunrise before everything changed. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. At 8 o'clock, Bernard texted me, "Papers are being served now. It's done." My heart started pounding. I imagined Richard answering the door, probably in his bathrobe, probably expecting a package or a neighbor. Instead, a stranger handing him a manila envelope, divorce papers, br, financial injunctions, evidence of his affair with my sister. His whole life collapsing in a single moment. br. My phone started ringing at 8:15. Br. Richard's name on the screen. I didn't answer. He called again. Br again. Br again. Br. 6 calls in 10 minutes. Br. Then text started flooding in. Catherine, what the hell is this? Br. Call me right now. Br. This is insane. You can't do this, Bar. We need to talk. Br, please. Catherine, please answer. I turned my phone to silent and set it face down on the table. Bar Bernard had been right. Bar, don't engage. Let him spiral alone. Br at 9 o'clock, Bernard called. How are you holding up? Bri asked. I'm okay, I said. He's trying to contact me. Bor, I'm not responding. Br, good, he said. He also just called my office screaming about how this is all a misunderstanding, how he needs to talk to you, how we need to stop this immediately. I told him all communication goes through me and he needs to get his own attorney. B hung up on me. Bernard sounded almost amused. Bar, this is going exactly as expected. Br, what happens now? Bar, I asked. Now we wait, he said. He has 24 hours to respond formally. Br, he'll probably hire a lawyer today or tomorrow. They'll review everything, realize how strong our case is, and hopefully advise him to settle. If he's stupid enough to fight this, we go to court and destroy him publicly. Br, either way, you win. The accounts are frozen as of this morning. Br, he can't touch any joint funds. Br, he can't access company accounts. He's essentially cut off financially until this is resolved. Br, what about the business? Br, I asked. You're still the operational manager, Bernard said. You can continue running day-to-day operations. He can't interfere, can't make decisions, can't access funds. Br, you're in complete control now. Emergency injunction granted by the judge this morning based on the evidence of financial misconduct. It was almost hard to believe. Dr. 6 months ago, I'd walked in on my husband and sister in my bed. This morning, I'd legally stripped him of access to everything we'd built. Everything I'd built. Because that was the truth. Br, I'd built it. Bar, he'd just been along for the ride. Br, by Monday afternoon, the news had spread. I started getting calls from friends, from business associates, from people in our social circle. Or, Catherine, is it true? Are you and Richard getting divorced? Br, I heard there was an affair. Br, I'm so sorry. Br, is there anything I can do? I kept my responses brief and dignified. Br, yes, we're separating. Br, it's been difficult. Br, I appreciate your support. I need some privacy right now. Br, most people were kind. B, some were clearly just fishing for gossip. I could hear the hunger in their voices, the eagerness to know the details. I gave them nothing. Br, at 2 o'clock, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Bar, I answered cautiously. Bar, hello? Catherine, it's me. Bar, don't hang up. Br, Diane. Bar voice was frantic, high-pitched, panicked. I should have hung up immediately like Bernard told me to, Br, but something made me stay on the line. Br, I wanted to hear her fear. I wanted to know that she understood what was happening. Br, what do you want, Diane? Br, I asked coldly. Br, what I want? What I want is to understand why you're doing this. Bye, you're destroying Richard. Why you're putting our affair in legal documents for everyone to see. Bar, Catherine, this is going to ruin me. People are already calling me. People know. Br, how could you do this? Bar, her audacity was breathtaking. Br, how could I do this? How could she ask that question after what she'd done? I stayed silent, letting her panic fill the void. Catherine, please, she continued. I know I hurt you. I know what we did was wrong. Br, but making it public like this, humiliating us like this, that's cruel. Br, that's vindictive. We can work this out privately. Br, you don't have to destroy everyone's lives over this. I almost laughed. She was worried about being destroyed. Br, she was worried about her reputation, not about the fact that she'd betrayed her own sister for 2 years. BR, not about the pain she'd caused, just about the consequences finally catching up to her. BR. I didn't make it public, I said quietly. The legal process made it public. BR. Divorce proceedings are public record. BR. I simply told the truth about why my marriage ended. If you're embarrassed by that truth, maybe you should have thought about that before sleeping with my husband for 2 years. But Catherine, she started. Bar, I cut her off. Bar, don't call me again, Diane. You're not my sister anymore. You lost that right. Whatever happens to you now, you earned it. Bar, I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from guilt. Bar, from satisfaction, from the sweet feeling of finally making them face consequences. That evening I went to the office. It was after hours, the building mostly empty. BR, I sat at my desk and looked around. This company, this space, this success, I'd built it. Bought my ideas, my work, my sacrifice. Richard had been the face, the salesman, but I'd been the engine. BR, and now it was officially mine to con. Troll. I logged into the company accounts, now unfrozen for my access only per the court order. I looked at the numbers, the properties, the contracts. BR, everything was still there. BR, still running. BR, still profitable. I hadn't just survived. BR, I was thriving. BR. Margaret, the accountant, had emailed me. Catherine, I heard about the divorce. I'm so sorry. BR. If you need anything, any financial documentation, any support with the business transition, I'm here. Please let me know how I can help. I wrote back immediately. BR. Thank you, Margaret. BR. Your support means everything. Let's schedule a meeting this week to discuss the company's financial structure going forward. I have some changes I want to implement. BR. She responded within minutes. BR. Absolutely. I'm here whenever you need me. BR. Over the next few days, more pieces fell into place. Richard hired an attorney, a man named Douglas Pratt, who had a reputation for being aggressive but not particularly skilled. His first move was to file a motion demanding access to company funds, claiming he needed money to live on. Bernard shut it down immediately, presenting evidence of the $400,000 Richard had hidden in separate accounts. If he needs money to live on, Bernard argued in his written response, he has plenty in his secret accounts. BR, the judge agreed. Motion denied. BR, Richard tried a different approach. BR, he started calling our adult children. Michael called me on Wednesday evening. BR. Mom, what's going on? Dad called me crying. BR, he says you're taking everything. He says you won't even talk to him. BR, he says this is all a big misunderstanding. I took a deep breath. Michael, this isn't a misunderstanding. BR, your father had an affair with Diane for 2 years. He also hid money from me from the business. BR, I have evidence of everything. BR, I'm protecting myself and the company. I'm sorry you're in the middle of this. There was silence on the other end. BR, with Aunt Diane? His voice sounded shocked, disgusted. BR, for 2 years? Mom, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. BR, why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't want to burden you, I said. I wanted to handle it properly, legally. BR, I want to make sure I did this right. Michael, I need you to know that whatever happens between your father and me, it doesn't change how much we both love you and Sarah. BR. But I also need you to understand that I'm not the villain here. I'm not taking everything out of spite. BR. I'm taking what's legally and rightfully mine. I understand, he said quietly. I'm on your side, Mom. Whatever you need. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. That phone call mattered more than I'd expected. Knowing my son believed me, supported me, understood why I was doing this, it gave me strength. Sarah called the next day with a similar conversation. She was angrier than Michael. I can't believe Dad did this. And Aunt Diane? That's disgusting. Mom, I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself. Don't let them guilt you into backing down. I won't, I promised her. BR, and I meant it. By the end of the second week, Richard's attorney reached out to Bernard with a settlement offer. It was insulting. Richard wanted 50% of everything. The business, the house, the accounts, all of it split down the middle. He claimed he'd contributed equally to building our empire and deserved equal compensation. Bernard sent me the offer with a single line, "BR, do you want me to respond or do you want to?" But I smiled. "Let me," I wrote back. BR, I crafted a response carefully. BR, I outlined every dollar I'd invested from my inheritance, every hour I'd worked while Richard schmoozes clients. BR, every decision I'd made that actually grew the company. I attached documentation proving that 70% of company growth came directly from my strategic decisions and operational management. I included evidence of his hidden accounts, his financial misconduct, his breach of trust. BR, and then I made my counteroffer. 10%. He could have 10% of liquid assets, no property, no stake in the business, no claim to the house. Take it or we go to trial and he gets less. Bernard loved it. "BR, this is perfect," he said when we spoke on the phone. "It's firm, it's backed by evidence, and it sends a clear message. BR, he's not going to accept it immediately, but it sets the tone. It shows we're not negotiating from weakness." DR. Douglas Pratt called Bernard the next day, apparently furious. "This offer is offensive," he said. "BR, Miss Esper Morrison is being vindictive and unreasonable. My client built that company alongside her. BR, he deserves fair compensation." But Bernard's response was ice cold. "Your client committed adultery with his wife's sister for 2 years. He embezzled $400,000 from joint accounts. BR, he violated his fiduciary duty as a business partner. BR, Mrs. Morrison is being more than generous, offering him anything. BR, if you want to take this to trial, we're ready. We have evidence, witnesses, and a very sympathetic client." WR, how do you think a judge will rule? There was apparently a long silence before Douglas responded. DR, will need to discuss this with our client. WR, will be in touch. The crack was showing. WR, Richard was starting to understand that he'd lost, that his affair, his lies, his theft, all of it had destroyed not just his marriage, but his entire financial future, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. BR, meanwhile, Diane had gone silent. BR, no more phone calls, no more texts. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd basically become a recluse. She'd stopped going out, stopped answering calls from anyone. Her name was being whispered in every social circle we'd ever been part of. BR, the woman who slept with her sister's husband. The home wrecker. BR, the betrayer. Her reputation was in ruins. Part of me, a very small part, felt sorry for her. We'd been sisters once, we'd shared a childhood, parents, memories. BR, but then I remember. Her in my bed, remembered her lies, remembered her asking me for forgiveness while still justifying what she'd done. That small part of me that felt sorry died quickly. 3 weeks after filing, Richard requested a meeting. He wanted to talk to me directly, face to face. Bernard advised against it. There's no reason for you to see him, he said. Anything he has to say can go through attorneys. But I wanted to see him. I wanted to look him in the eye and let him see what he'd lost. I agreed to meet at Bernard's office with both attorneys present. Neutral ground, professional setting. No chance for him to manipulate or intimidate. The meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. I dressed carefully that morning. A navy blue suit, professional, powerful. I did my hair and makeup flawlessly. I wanted to look successful, untouchable, completely in control. I arrived at Bernard's office 15 minutes early. Richard was already there, sitting in the conference room with Douglas. I walked in and saw him for the first time in 3 weeks. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight. His face was drawn, tired, older. His eyes were red-rimmed. He looked like he'd been crying. Good, Catherine, he started as soon as I sat down. Bernard held up his hand. Mr. Morrison, let's keep this professional. You requested this meeting. State your purpose. Richard swallowed hard. I wanted to talk to Catherine directly, to try to make her understand. To see if we can work something out that doesn't destroy everything we built. I looked at him coldly. But you already destroyed everything we built, Richard. You destroyed it the first time you touched my sister. Bar, you destroyed it every day for 2 years while you lied to my face. I'm not destroying anything. Br, I'm just picking up the pieces. Br, Richard's face crumpled. Br, please, Catherine, I know I made a terrible mistake. But I know I hurt you. Br, but we can get past this. Bar, we've been together for almost 30 years. That has to mean something. Dr, 28 years, I corrected him. Br, 28 years of marriage, 2 of which you spent having an affair with my sister. Br, so no, it doesn't mean what you think it means. It means I wasted 28 years on someone who didn't value me, didn't respect me, and didn't deserve me. Br, he tried again. The business, Catherine. Br, we built that together. You can't just take it all. That's not fair. I didn't build that company to see it destroyed because you're angry. Fair, Br, I repeated the word slowly. You want to talk about fair? Br, is it fair that I worked 80-hour weeks while you took credit for my ideas? Is it fair that I invested my inheritance, my family's money, to start that company while you contributed nothing? Is it fair that you hid $400,000 in secret accounts while I pinched pennies to reinvest in growth? Don't talk to me about fair, Richard. Br, you lost the right to that word. Br, Douglas Pratt cleared his throat. Mrs. Br Morrison, my client acknowledges his mistakes, but the settlement offer you've made is unreasonable. 10% is insulting given his contributions to the company over nearly 3 decades. But Bernard didn't even look at Douglas. He kept his eyes on Richard. Br, your client's contributions are well documented. Br, sales and client relations. Br, valuable, certainly. But Mrs. Br Morrison handled operations, strategy, finance, personnel, property acquisition, and every major decision that actually generated profit. Bar, her contributions are worth substantially more than his. And that's before we factor in his breach of fiduciary duty and theft of company funds. Br, Richard's face flushed red. I didn't steal anything. Bar, that money was mine too. Br, it was in joint accounts. Br, Bernard slid a document across the table. This is a forensic accounting report. Br, it traces every dollar your client moved into his private accounts. 92% of those funds came directly from company profits that should have been reinvested or distributed equally. He moved them without authorization, without Mrs. Br Morrison's knowledge, and without any legitimate business purpose. In legal terms, that's embezzlement. Br, would you like us to press criminal charges in addition to the civil proceedings? The color drained from Richard's face. Br, you wouldn't, he said, looking at me. Br, you wouldn't do that. I held his gaze. Br, try me. I'm done protecting you, Richard. Br, I'm done making excuses for you. Br, you made your choices. But now you live with the consequences. He looked desperate now, cornered. Br, what about our children? Br, what about Michael and Sarah? Br, this is going to affect them too. You're willing to drag them through all of this just to punish me? Br, I leaned forward. Br, our children already know the truth. I told them everything. They know about the affair. Br, they know about the money. They know what kind of man their father really is. Br, and you know what? Br, they're supporting me. Because they understand the difference between right and wrong. Br, something you apparently never learned. Br, Richard's eyes widened. You told them? Br, how could you? Br, they didn't need to know about this. They didn't need to be involved. Br, they deserve to know why their parents' marriage ended, I said firmly. They deserve the truth instead of whatever lies you would have told them. Br, and they're adults, Richard. They can handle the truth. Br, unlike you, apparently. The meeting went downhill from there. Richard oscillated between begging, threatening, and trying to negotiate. Nothing worked. I sat there calm and unmoved while he fell apart. Bernard eventually ended the meeting. Mr. Br Morrison, you have our offer, 10% of liquid assets. You have 1 week to accept or we proceed to trial. At trial, based on the evidence, you'll likely receive less. Br, potentially nothing. Make your decision. Br, we left the conference room. Richard tried to follow me into the hallway. BR, Catherine, please just give me 5 minutes alone. B, I need to talk to you without the lawyers, but I need you to understand. Bernard stepped between us. Mr. Burr Morrison, do not contact my client directly. BR, all communication goes through me. If you continue to harass her, we'll file for a restraining order. Richard looked at me over Bernard's shoulder. His eyes were pleading, desperate. Bar, how did we get here? Burr asked quietly. Bar, how did it come to this? I met his gaze one last time. Burr, you made a choice, Richard. Burr, you chose to betray me. Burr, I chose not to forgive you. That's how we got here. Then I turned and walked away. I heard him call my name one more time, but I didn't look back. I got in my car, drove to my apartment, and the moment I closed the door behind me, I started shaking. BR, not from fear or regret. From relief, Bar, from the overwhelming sense that I'd finally, fully taken control. Bar, he'd seen my resolve. He'd understood that I wasn't backing down, and there was nothing he could do about it. That weekend, I received a call from an unexpected source. Margaret, the accountant. BR, Catherine, I hope I'm not overstepping, but there's something I think you should know. Something I discovered while doing the audit you requested months ago. BR, I sat down. BR, what is it? She took a deep breath. The missing money, the $400,000 in Richard's accounts, that's not all of it. Bar, I found another account. It's offshore. In the Cayman Islands. BR, there's nearly $600,000 in it, all transferred from company profits over the last 5 years. I didn't say anything before because I wasn't sure if you knew about it, if maybe it was a legitimate tax strategy. But given everything that's happening now, I thought you needed to know. My hands gripped the phone tightly. 600,000 more? Margaret, are you absolutely certain? I have the documentation, she said. Account numbers, transfer, records, everything. BR, it's all traceable back to company funds. I can send it all to you or directly to your attorney if you prefer. BR, send it to Bernard, I said immediately. Send him everything you have. Bar, this changes things. This changes everything. I called Bernard immediately after hanging up with Margaret. He listened as I explained about the offshore account. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. Then he spoke, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Bar, Catherine, this is exactly what we needed. This isn't just embezzlement of community property. BR. This is international financial fraud. BR. This is tax evasion. This is criminal. BR. We can destroy him completely with this. Do we want to? Burr, I asked. BR, do we want to pursue criminal charges? That's up to you, Bernard said. We can use it as leverage to force a better settlement, or we can actually pursue prosecution and he could face prison time. But BR, what do you want, BR? I thought about it. Did I want Richard in prison? Or did I want him to lose his freedom on top of everything else? Bar, part of me did. Bar, part of me wanted him to suffer as completely as possible. But another part, the practical part, just wanted this over. I want to use it as leverage, I said finally. I want him to accept the settlement immediately. 10%, no negotiation, or we go to the authorities with this information. BR, Bernard agreed. I'll contact Douglas first thing Monday morning. BR, this should expedite things considerably. Monday came and Bernard made the call. BR. I wasn't on the line, but he told me later how it went. Douglas, Bernard had said, we've discovered additional assets, an offshore account in the Cayman Islands with approximately $600,000, all traceable to company funds transferred illegally. BR. This constitutes federal crimes, tax evasion, money laundering, fraud. My client is willing not to pursue criminal prosecution if your client accepts our settlement offer immediately. BR today. Otherwise, we're contacting the FBI this afternoon. BR, there was apparently a long pause. Then Douglas said, I need to speak with my client. Bar, you have until noon, Bernard said. Bar, after that, we make the call. At 11:45, Douglas called back. BR. My client accepts the settlement. BR. He wants this over. He wants to move on with his life. Bernard smiled when he told me. Bar we won, Catherine.br, completely and totally dr we won. The paperwork was drawn up within days. Richard would receive 10% of liquid assets, approximately $400,000. He would have no claim to the business, no claim to the house, no claim to any properties or future profits. The offshore account would be repatriated and added to my assets. B would also sign a non-disparagement agreement. He couldn't talk publicly about the divorce, couldn't badmouth me, couldn't interfere with the business. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue criminal charges for the financial fraud. He signed everything without a fight. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. .br, 28 years of marriage ended with a judge's signature and a court stamp. I walked out of the courthouse that day, a free woman. .br, legally single. .br, financially secure, in complete control of the business I'd built. Bar Richard walked out with a check and nothing else. No wife, no company, no reputation, no future in Charleston. .br. I heard later that he moved away. .bar, somewhere out west, Arizona or Nevada. .bar, somewhere he could start over, where no one knew his name or his failures. Diane was a different story. She didn't have the option of moving away and starting fresh. .br. She'd lived in Charleston her entire life. Her whole social network, her job, her apartment, everything was here. .br. And now everyone knew what she'd done. I didn't have to do anything to punish her. The community did it for me. She lost her job within a month of the affair becoming public. Her employer, a small marketing firm, said it was due to restructuring. But everyone knew the real reason. No one wanted to work with the woman who'd betrayed her own sister. Her friends stopped calling. DBR invitations dried up. Even our extended family took sides, and most of them chose mine. I heard through Janet that Diane tried to reach out to our cousins, to aunts and uncles, looking for support or sympathy. .br, she found none. Our Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, apparently told her directly, "What you did was unforgivable. Catherine gave you everything, and you repaid her by sleeping with her husband. I don't want to hear from you again." Even her own children, 2 kids from her first marriage who are now adults, reportedly distanced themselves. They were embarrassed, ashamed of what their mother had done. I wish I could say I felt sorry for her. I wish I could say that watching her life fall apart gave me no satisfaction. .br, but that would be a lie. Every time I heard about another friendship she'd lost, another door that closed in her face, another consequence of her actions, I felt vindicated. I felt like the universe was finally balancing the scales. She'd taken something precious from me. .br, now she was losing everything. .br, it wasn't revenge. It was justice. About 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was having coffee with Janet at our usual cafe when I saw Diane. She was across the street, walking alone, looking thin and pale. She was wearing clothes I recognized from years ago, nothing new, probably because she couldn't afford new clothes anymore. She saw me through the window. Our eyes met for just a moment. I saw pain in her face, regret maybe, or just the exhaustion of consequences. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity, just nothing. She was a stranger to me now. Less than a stranger. She was someone who used to exist in my life and didn't anymore. Janet noticed where I was looking. Is that her? She asked quietly. I nodded. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it. Empty, I said. I feel empty when I look at her. Like there's supposed to be something there, some emotion, but there's just a void where my sister used to be. Janet squeezed my hand. That's okay, she said. That's actually healthy. You've moved on. You've let go. That's exactly what you should feel. Diane turned and walked away. I watched her disappear around a corner and realized Janet was right. I had let go. Not forgiven. I would never forgive. But I'd released the anger, the pain, the need for any more revenge. She was suffering. That was enough. The business thrived under my sole leadership. Without Richard's ego and need for recognition, without his poor financial decisions masked as risks, without his interference, the company actually ran better. I promoted from within, bringing up talented people who'd been overlooked when Richard was playing favorites. I restructured our investment strategy, focusing on sustainable growth rather than flashy acquisitions. Within 6 months, our profit margins increased by 15%. Our employees' satisfaction scores went up. Our reputation in the industry improved. I also made changes in my personal life. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Not after everything that had happened in those rooms, not with those memories embedded in every wall. I bought a smaller place, a modern condo downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the harbor. It was entirely mine. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every choice made by me alone. It felt like freedom. It felt like a fresh start. Michael and Sarah came to visit for Thanksgiving. It was the first major holiday after the divorce. I'd worried it would be awkward, that they'd feel torn between parents, that the day would be heavy with everything unspoken. But it wasn't. We cooked together, laughed together, talked about their lives and their plans. They asked how I was doing, really doing, and I told them the truth. I'm good. I said, I'm actually really good. Better than I've been in years. And I meant it. Sarah asked if I was dating. The question surprised me. I hadn't even thought about it. Dating at 52 after a 28-year marriage that ended in betrayal, it seemed impossible, exhausting, not something I had any interest in. Maybe eventually, I told her, but right now I'm just enjoying being on my own. Learning who I am without someone else defining me. She smiled. I think that's really healthy, Mom. You deserve time to just be yourself. Michael asked about Richard. Have you talked to him at all? I shook my head. No, and I don't plan to. There's nothing left to say, He made his choices. I made mine. We're both living with the consequences. Is he doing okay? Michael asked carefully. I don't know, I said honestly. I heard he moved to Nevada. Beyond that, I don't keep track. That part of my life is over. Michael nodded. I think that's for the best. I just wanted to make sure you weren't carrying around anger or bitterness. I thought about that, but I'm not bitter, I said slowly. I'm just done. There's a difference. The holidays passed. Winter turned to spring. Life continued. I fell into new rhythms, new routines. Morning coffee on my balcony, watching the sun rise over the water. Work days that were busy and fulfilling without the stress of managing Richard's mess. Evenings with friends, with books, with hobbies I'd neglected for years. I took a painting class. I joined a book club. I traveled, short trips at first, then longer ones. I went to Italy for 2 weeks, something I'd always wanted to do, but Richard had never been interested in. I walked through museums, ate incredible food, practiced my terrible Italian, and felt more alive than I had in decades. One evening, about a year after the divorce, I was at a gallery opening. Janet had dragged me along, insisting I needed to get out more, to see art, to be social. I was standing in front of a painting, a vibrant abstract, piece full of reds and golds, when someone spoke beside me. It's stunning, isn't it, the way the colors clash but somehow work together. I turned and saw a man about my age, maybe slightly older, with kind eyes and silver hair. It is, I agreed. There's something about controlled chaos that I find appealing. He smiled. I'm Daniel, he said, extending his hand. Daniel Ross. I'm Catherine, I said, shaking it. Catherine Reynolds. I started using my maiden name again after the divorce. It felt right, like reclaiming a part of myself I'd lost. We talked for a while. He was an architect, recently widowed, adjusting to life alone after 30 years of marriage. We talked about art, about Charleston about the strangeness of starting over later in life. There was no pressure, no expectation, just easy conversation with someone who understood transition and loss. When the gallery event ended, he asked if I'd like to get coffee sometime by a bar. I surprised myself by saying yes. We exchanged numbers. A few days later, we met for coffee, .br, then dinner, .br, then a walk along the Battery. It wasn't romance, not yet, maybe not ever .br, but it was companionship. It was the beginning of something new, something undefined, something that belonged entirely to this new version of my life. Daniel never asked about my divorce, or he never pried into my past. He seemed to understand that some stories were too heavy to share right away. I appreciated that more than he knew. Months passed. My relationship with Daniel developed slowly, carefully. We took our time, there was no rush, no pressure. We were both healing from our own losses in our own ways. Some evenings we spent together, some we spent apart. It was comfortable, easy, nothing like the intensity of young love, but something perhaps better, something more honest. He met Michael and Sarah when they came to visit for Christmas. They liked him. He was respectful, warm, clearly cared about me, but wasn't trying to replace their father. Just someone who makes your mom happy, he told them. That's all I'm trying to be. The second anniversary of finding Richard and Diane together came and went. I remembered the date, but it didn't hurt anymore. It was just a day, a marker of time, a reminder of how far I'd come. 2 years ago, I'd walked into my bedroom and my life had shattered. Now I was standing in a new life I'd built piece by piece. A life that was mine, a life where I made the rules, set the boundaries, chose who deserved space in my world, and anyone who betrayed me, who lied to me, who took me for granted, they simply didn't get that space anymore. I thought about revenge sometimes, about whether what I'd done was justified or if I'd gone too far. I'd taken almost everything from Richard. I'd stood by while Diane's life collapsed. I'd been cold, calculated, ruthless in my pursuit of justice. Some people probably thought I was cruel. But I'd made peace with it. Choices. I'd made choices. Actions have consequences. That's not cruelty. That's just reality. And if my revenge was brutal, well, so was their betrayal. One afternoon in early spring, about 2.5 years after everything started, I was in my office going through quarterly reports when my assistant buzzed me. "Catherine, there's someone here to see you, She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important, it's personal." "Who is it?" I asked, though something in my chest already knew. Your sister," my assistant said quietly. Diane Morrison." "Should I tell her you're not available?" I sat there for a long moment, staring at the phone. Diane, after all this time. After months of silence, what could she possibly want? Part of me wanted to say yes, tell her I'm not available, tell her to leave and never come back. But another part, the part that was curious, the part that had truly moved on and wasn't afraid of her anymore, wanted to see what she had to say. Send her in," I said. "Give me 5 minutes, then send her in." I used those 5 minutes to prepare myself. I stood up, straightened my jacket, looked at my reflection in the window. I looked successful, powerful, completely in control. That's who I was now. Not the woman who'd been betrayed. Not the victim, the woman who'd taken her life back and built something even better. I sat back down at my desk just as the door opened. Diane walked in. She looked even thinner than the last time I'd seen her. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame. Her face was drawn, tired, older than her years. She looked like someone who'd been through hell. "Good, Catherine," she said quietly. "Thank you for seeing me." I didn't respond. I just gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat down slowly, carefully, like someone who wasn't sure they were welcome. But she wasn't. She looked around my office, taking in the success, the view, the evidence of everything I'd built. "This is beautiful," she said. "The company is doing well?" "But the company is doing excellent," I said. "BR better than ever, actually." "BR, what do you want, Diane?" She flinched at my tone. "BR, I wanted to talk to you. BR, I wanted to see if maybe, after all this time, we could talk. BR, really talk." I leaned back in my chair. "Bar, we're talking now. BR, what do you want to say?" She took a deep breath. "I want to apologize. I know I've said it before, but I don't think you understood how sorry I really am. BR, what Richard and I did, it was unforgivable. I know that now. BR, I've lost everything, Catherine. BR, my job, my friends, my family. BR, I'm completely alone. BR, and I deserve it. I know I deserve it. BR, but I'm still your sister. BR, we share blood, we share history. I'm asking if there's any possibility, any chance at all that someday you might be able to forgive me." I looked at her without expression. "Let me make sure I understand. You're here because you've lost everything, because you're alone, because you're suffering. NG.BR. And now you want forgiveness. BR. Now you want me to let you back into my life. Not because you genuinely feel remorse, but because you need something from me. BR again." BR, her face crumpled. "No, that's not. I do feel remorse. By BR, I feel terrible about what I did. Every single day I wake up and I regret it. Every single day I think about how I hurt you. BR, do you?" I asked quietly. "BR, do you really? Or do you regret getting caught? Do you regret the consequences?" BR, because there's a difference, Diane. BR, remorse is about the harm you caused. Regret is about the punishment you received. BR, which one are you actually feeling? She started crying. BR, both, she said. "I regret all of it. BR, the affair, the lies, the betrayal. If I could go back and change it, I would. BR, but I can't. All I can do is tell you I'm sorry and ask for another chance. Ask for the possibility that someday we might be sisters again." I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the city, at the harbor in the distance, at the life I'd built without her. "Do you know what the worst part was?" I asked, not looking at her. It wasn't the affair itself, as terrible as that was. It wasn't even the lies, though those hurt. The worst part was realizing that I never really mattered to you. I was just someone useful, someone who gave you money, a place to stay, support, whenever you needed it. But you never saw me as a person. You never valued me. I was just a resource. BR, and the moment something else became more appealing, you took it without thinking twice about what it would cost me. That's not true, she said weakly. You mattered to me. You still matter to me. I turned and looked at her. BR, if I mattered, you wouldn't have slept with my husband. If I mattered, you would have stopped after the first time. If I mattered, you would have told me the truth instead of letting me find out the way I did. You don't get to rewrite history now that you're suffering the consequences. You made choices, BR. You chose him over me. You chose lies over honesty. You chose your pleasure over my pain. Those were your choices. Now live with them. Catherine, please, she started. I held up my hand. "I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully. I don't forgive you. I will never forgive you. What you did wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a sustained betrayal over 2 years. 2 years of looking me in the eye and lying. 2 years of destroying my marriage while pretending to be my sister. That's not forgivable." She was sobbing now. "So that's it? We're never going to be family again? Never? We stopped being family the moment you climbed into bed with Richard," I said. "Everything after that was just me realizing what you'd already decided. You chose to destroy our relationship. I'm just respecting your choice. BR, now I have work to do. I need you to leave." She stood up slowly. She looked broken, defeated, empty. "Catherine, I know. You don't believe me, but I really am sorry. I really do wish I could take it back." "I'm sure you do," I said, but you can't. And I've moved on. BR, my life is better without you in it. I'm happier, more successful, more at peace. You were toxic and I didn't even realize it until you were gone. Br. So no, I don't want you back in my life. Br. Not now. Not ever. Bar. She walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the handle. If you ever change your mind, she said quietly, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I won't hold my breath, I replied. She left. The door closed behind her, and I stood there for a moment in the silence. I waited to feel something, guilt for being so harsh. Sadness for the relationship that was truly finally over, relief at having said everything I needed to say. But I felt nothing. Just a calm emptiness, just the certain knowledge that I'd made the right choice. I sat back down at my desk. I picked up the quarterly report I'd been reviewing before the interruption. The numbers were good. The company was growing. Life was moving forward. Diane was part of the past, a closed chapter, a lesson learned about who to trust and who to cut out of your life without hesitation. My assistant buzzed again. Catherine, Daniel just called. He wanted to remind you about dinner tonight. Br. That new Italian place at 7. Br. Do you want me to send him a confirmation? I smiled. Yes, please confirm. Tell him I'm looking forward to it. I hung up the phone and looked around my office. My space. My company, my life. Everything I'd fought for, everything I'd taken back, everything I'd built from the ruins of betrayal. This was my revenge. Not just destroying them, though I'd certainly done that. But building something better, becoming someone stronger, living a life so full and satisfying that they became irrelevant. That was the real victory. Evening came and I met Daniel at the restaurant. He stood when I arrived, pulled out my chair, smiled at me with genuine warmth. How was your day? He asked. Interesting, I said. Diane came to see me. His eyebrows raised. Your sister? How did that go? I told her I would never forgive her. I told her to stay out of my life. It felt good. It felt final. He reached across the table and took my hand. I'm proud of you. That couldn't have been easy. It was easier than I expected, I said honestly. I think that's how I know I've really moved on. She doesn't have power over me anymore. But none of them do. We had a wonderful dinner. We talked about his current architecture project, about a trip we were planning to France in the fall, about books we were reading and exhibits we wanted to see. We talked about the future, about possibilities, about the life we were building together slowly and carefully. When he dropped me off at my condo that night, he kissed me goodnight at the door. Sleep well, Catherine, he said. You too, I replied. I watched him drive away. Tea. Hen went inside. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my balcony looking out at the water. The harbor lights reflected on the dark surface, beautiful and peaceful. I thought about the woman I'd been 3 years ago, the woman who trusted too much, who gave too freely, who thought loyalty and love were the same thing. That woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, yes, but also someone wiser. Someone who knew her worth, someone who wouldn't settle for less than she deserved ever again. I thought about Richard sometimes, though less and less as time went on. I wondered if he'd found someone new in Nevada, if he'd learned anything from losing everything, if he ever lay awake at night understanding what he'd destroyed. Probably not. People like Richard rarely develop self-awareness. They just move on to the next opportunity, the next person to use, the next situation to exploit. I hoped whoever he was with now, if anyone, saw through him faster than I did. I hope she had the strength to walk away before wasting decades on him. As for Diane, after that final meeting in my office, I heard she'd moved away. Not far, just to Columbia, a few hours north. Somewhere she could start over without the weight of everyone knowing what she'd done. I heard she was working retail again, living in a small apartment, keeping to herself. Our Aunt Carol mentioned it once in passing, then quickly changed the subject when she saw my face. She knew I didn't want updates. Bot BR, I didn't want to know if Diane was doing better or worse. She simply didn't exist in my world anymore. BR, the business, continued to thrive. By the third year after the divorce, we'd expanded into 2 more states. I hired a talented young woman named Jessica Park as my second in command. She was brilliant, hardworking, ambitious, but ethical, Bat BR, everything Richard had pretended to be but wasn't. We made a great team. She handled acquisitions while I focused on strategy and operations. Together, we built something even stronger than what existed before. Employees started referring to the company's timeline as before and after the divorce. Before was stagnant, political, frustrating. BR after was dynamic, growing, exciting. BR. I'd liberated more than just myself. I'd liberated an entire organization. BR, Michael got engaged that year. BR, he brought his fiancée, Lauren, to meet me. She was wonderful, smart, kind, genuine. BR, over dinner, she asked me about my divorce, not in a nosy way, but with real curiosity. Michael's told me some of what happened, she said. BR, I just want you to know, I think what you did was incredibly brave. Standing up for yourself, taking control, not letting people walk all over you. But that takes real strength. Too many women stay in bad situations because they're afraid or they think they should keep trying. You didn't. You knew your worth. I respect that so much. BR, her words meant more than she probably realized. BR, I'd spent so much time wondered. Ring if I'd been too harsh, too calculated, too brutal. Hearing someone, especially someone young and starting their own life journey, say that I'd done the right thing, it validated everything. BR, thank you, I told her. BR, that means a lot. BR. She smiled. I hope if I'm ever in a situation where I need to be that strong, I can remember your example. You won't need to be, I said. Michael learned from watching what not to do. He'll treat you well. BR, and if he doesn't, you'll know exactly what to do. We all laughed, but there was truth underneath the humor. Sarah finished her residency and got a position at a hospital in Charlotte. BR, not too far away, close enough to visit regularly. She was thriving, becoming an excellent doctor, building a life she was proud of. Both my children had turned out well despite, or maybe because of, the chaos of their parents' divorce. They'd learned that sometimes love isn't enough. BR, sometimes respect matters more. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something that's destroying you. Those were hard lessons, but valuable ones. Daniel and I took that trip to France we'd planned, 2 weeks in Provence, staying in small hotels, eating incredible food, visiting markets and vineyards, talking for hours about everything and nothing. One evening, sitting at a cafe in a medieval village, he took my hand across the table. Catherine, I need to tell you something. I nodded, suddenly nervous. BR, what is it? He smiled. I'm not going to propose. Don't worry, I know neither of us is ready for that. BR, maybe we never will be, and that's okay. BR, but I need you to know that I love you. I love the woman you are, BR. I love your strength and your honesty and the way you rebuilt your life from nothing. I love being part of that life. BR, I'm not asking for anything more than what we have. I just wanted you to know, BR. I felt tears prick my eyes. BR, good tears this time, healing tears. I love you too, I said. And you're right, I don't know if I'll ever want to get married again, but I know I want you in my life. I know that what we have is real and valuable and worth protecting. That's enough for me. He squeezed my hand. Janet made a toast. To Catherine, she said, raising her glass, who taught all of us that it's never too late to choose yourself. That forgiveness isn't mandatory, that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. BR. To Catherine. Everyone echoed the toast. To Catherine Burr, I looked around the room at these faces, these people who valued me, who saw me, who chose to be in my life because they wanted to be, not because they needed something from me. This was what I'd fought for. This was what those 6 months of careful planning had earned me. Not just financial security or business success, bar freedom, the freedom to build a life on my own terms, bar the freedom to say no, bar the freedom to walk away from toxicity without guilt, the freedom to love cautiously and wisely, bar the freedom to be exactly who I was without apology. Later that night, after everyone had left, I sat on my balcony with a final glass of wine. I thought about the title of my story. I caught my husband with my sister. My revenge took 6 months and was absolutely brutal. It was true. Every word. But the revenge wasn't just what I did to them. The revenge was what I did for myself. The revenge was taking back my power, my agency, my life. The revenge was refusing to be a victim. The revenge was building something so much better than what they destroyed. That was the real brutality. Not that I hurt them, though I certainly did, but that I didn't need them, that I thrived without them, that their betrayal, which was meant to break me, actually freed me. I thought about other women out there who might be going through something similar, who might have just discovered a betrayal, who might be sitting in shock wondering what to do next. I wanted them to know that they had options, that they didn't have to forgive, that they didn't have to be nice, that they could fight back strategically and legally and completely, that they could win. Not everyone has the resources I had. Not everyone has access to good lawyers and forensic accountants, but everyone has the right to protect themselves. Everyone has the right to demand better, Everyone has the right to walk away from people who don't value them. My story isn't about encouraging revenge for revenge's sake. It's about showing what's possible when you refuse to accept being treated badly, when you document everything, when you plan carefully, when you don't let emotion override strategy, when you understand that sometimes the high road is overrated and what you really need is the smart road, the road that protects you legally, financially, emotionally, the road that ensures the people who hurt you can't keep hurting you, the road that leads to genuine freedom. Was I brutal? Yes. Was I calculated? Absolutely. Do I regret any of it? Not for a single second. Because the alternative was staying silent, accepting the betrayal, trying to forgive, and move on while they continued to die. Just respect me. The alternative was letting them get away with it, letting them keep the life we'd built with my money and my work while I got nothing but more pain. That wasn't acceptable. That was never going to be acceptable, So I chose war, I chose to fight back with every legal tool available. I chose to protect myself and punish them, and I won, completely, utterly, devastatingly, Richard lost almost everything. Diane lost her entire life in Charleston, and I gained a new life, a better life. A life where I made the rules. That's not cruelty, that's justice, that's self-respect. That's knowing your worth and demanding that everyone else recognize it too. 3 years have passed now since that terrible Tuesday afternoon when I opened my bedroom door. 3 years of transformation, of growth, of becoming someone I didn't know I could be. The woman I am now wouldn't have tolerated what the old Catherine accepted. The woman I am now would have seen the signs earlier, set boundaries sooner, protected herself better. But the woman I was then did the best she could with what she knew. And when she finally understood the truth, she didn't fall apart, she got stronger, she got strategic. She got even, if you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, if you've just discovered a betrayal or you've been living with one for a while, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not required to forgive. You are not required to be understanding. You are not required to think about the other person's feelings or circumstances. They didn't think about yours. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to protect yourself, You are allowed to make them face consequences. And you are absolutely allowed to come out of this situation better than you went into it. BR, here's what I learned that I wish I'd known earlier. .br, document everything. From the moment you suspect something is wrong, start keeping records. Screenshots of messages, photos, receipts, bank statements, unusual behaviors, everything. You might not know what you'll need later, but having it is better than wishing you did. Open your own bank account that only you control. Even if you're putting just small amounts in, start building a safety net that no one else can access. .br, know what you own. Know what's in your name, what's in joint names, what you contributed, what they contributed. Knowledge is power in these situations. BR, get professional help immediately. .br, not a therapist, not yet, though that comes later. First, get a lawyer. .br, a good one. Someone who specializes in complex divorces, someone who understands business assets, someone who fights hard. Don't try to handle this yourself. Don't try to be fair or reasonable. The other person already showed you they're not being fair. You need someone who will protect your interests ruthlessly. Yes, it costs money. .br, it's worth every penny. .br, I spent probably $50,000 on Lega. Fees throughout my divorce. .br, I gained millions. .br, best investment I ever made. BR, don't tell anyone your plans. This is critical. .br. When you're gathering evidence, preparing your case, getting ready to file, keep it quiet. Don't tell your spouse you're thinking about divorce. .br. Don't tell mutual friends. .br. Don't post about it on social media. Definitely don't confront the affair partner yet. .br. Every person you tell is a potential leak. Every warning you give is an opportunity for them to hide assets, delete evidence, prepare their own defense. The element of surprise is one of your biggest advantages. BR. Use it. BR. Be patient. .bar. This is perhaps the hardest part. You want to react immediately. You want to scream and throw them out and blow up their life right now. I understand that feeling completely. But patience wins. Taking time to build an airtight case, to document everything, to understand all your assets, to prepare strategically, that patience pays off. I waited 6 months. 6 months of pretending, of acting like I was considering reconciliation, of being pleasant while I planned their destruction. Those 6 months were the hardest of my life, but they gave me everything I needed to win completely. BR, understand that you're not just fighting your spouse, you're fighting their lawyer, their narrative, their version of events, possibly their family and friends. You need to be prepared for them to lie. .br, to twist facts. .br, to play the victim. Richard tried to tell people that I was vindictive, that I was taking everything out of spite, that he'd made one mistake and I was overreacting. BR, people who knew the full truth didn't believe him. But some people did. Some people will always side with the charming person, the person who tells a good story. You can't control that. .br. What you can control is the legal outcome. Focus on what matters. BR, protect your children if you have them, but don't hide the truth from them if they're adults. I told Michael and Sarah everything. Some people said I shouldn't have, that I was putting them in the middle, but they were adults. They deserve to know why their parents' marriage ended. They deserve the truth instead of lies and half stories. .br. And you know what? They could handle it. They were upset, yes, but they appreciated being trusted with reality. Don't underestimate your children's ability to understand complex situations. Don't protect adults from truth. They need to know. BR. Expect the affair partner to eventually reach out. Whether it's your sister, like in my case, or a friend, or a coworker, or whoever, they'll eventually try to apologize or explain or justify. Don't engage unless you want to. You owe them nothing. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not even a conversation. When Diane came to my office 3 years later, I could have refused to see her. .br. Part of me wishes I had, but part of me needed that closure, needed to say to her face that she would never be forgiven. Only. You know what you need. .br. But know that you're not required to give them anything, including your time. BR, rebuild deliberately. After the divorce is final, after the dust settles, take time to figure out who you are now. You're not the same person you were before the betrayal. .br. You've been changed by trauma and by strength, by loss and by victory. Take time to understand this new version of yourself. Bar, what do you want? Bar, what do you need? What kind of life do you want to build? Bar, don't rush into new relationships. .br. Don't make major decisions immediately. Give yourself space to breathe, to heal, to become. I took almost 2 years before I was ready to even consider dating. Some people are ready sooner. .br. Some take longer. There's no right timeline. .br. Surround yourself with people who support your decisions. I had Janet, who'd been through her own difficult divorce. .br. I had Bernard, my lawyer, who believed in my right to protect myself. I had friends who didn't question my choices, who didn't pressure me to forgive or reconcile. These people were essential. They reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't overreacting, that I deserved better. Bind your people, the ones who see your worth, even when you're struggling to see it yourself. The ones who support your boundaries, the ones who celebrate your victories and sit with you through your grief. Let yourself feel everything. I spent 6 months performing, pretending, keeping my emotions locked down tight while I planned. After I filed, after it was done, I had moments where I fell apart. .br. Moments where I cried for hours. Moments where I was furious beyond words. .br. Moments where I felt guilty and wondered if I'd been too harsh. All of those feelings were valid. .br. All of them needed space. .br. You can be strong and strategic and still feel pain. You can win completely and still grieve what was lost. Let yourself be human. .br. Let yourself break down when you need to. Then put yourself back together and keep moving forward. Know that revenge, even justified revenge, doesn't heal everything. It helps. .br. It absolutely helps. Satisfaction in watching someone who hurt you face consequences. There's power in taking back control. .br. But it doesn't erase the betrayal. It doesn't undo the years you spent with someone who didn't value you. It doesn't make the pain disappear completely. What it does do is give you justice. .br. It gives you agency. .br. It gives you the resources and freedom to build something better. That's enough. .br. That has to be enough. 3 years later, I can tell you that my life is unrecognizably better than it was. I'm happier. I'm more successful. I'm more myself than I've ever been. I have a relationship with Daniel that's built on honesty and mutual respect, not obligation or history. I have a business that's thriving because it's truly mine now. I have children who respect me for standing up for myself. I have friends who choose to be in my life. I have peace. Real, genuine peace. Not the false peace of pretending everything is fine, the real peace of knowing exactly who you are and being okay with it. Richard and Diane gave me an unexpected gift when they betrayed me. They showed me that I was stronger than I ever knew. They showed me that I could survive the worst and come out better. They showed me that I didn't need them, that I never really did. But they thought they were taking something from me. Instead, they freed me from a life that wasn't serving me anymore. They destroyed something old and stagnant so I could build something new and vibrant. I'll never thank them for it. But I can acknowledge that I'm better off now than I was then. So yes, I caught my husband with my sister. Yes, my revenge took 6 months and was absolutely brutal. But here's what I want you to understand. It wasn't just revenge. It was reclamation. It was taking back my power, my assets, my life, my future. It was refusing to be a victim. It was choosing myself when no one else would. It was understanding that sometimes love isn't enough, that sometimes trust once broken can't be repaired, that sometimes the only path forward is burning the old life down and building something completely new from the ashes. Would I do it again? in a heartbeat. Bar, would I change anything? Bar, not a single thing. Bar, do I have regrets? Only that I didn't see who they really were sooner. Br, but I see clearly now. I see that people show you who they are through their actions, not their words. Br. I see that trust is earned and easily lost. I see that forgiveness is a gift, not a requirement. Br. I see that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. And I see that the best revenge isn't hurting someone back. It's building a life so good they can't touch it, can't ruin it, can't even reach it. Br. I'm Catherine Reynolds. I'm 55 years old. Br. I run a successful property management company. Br. I have 2 wonderful adult children. I have a loving partner who treats me with respect. Br. I have friends who value me. I have a life I built myself, for myself, on my own terms. Br. And I got here by refusing to accept less than I deserved, by fighting back when I was betrayed. Br. By being patient and strategic and absolutely ruthless when necessary. Br. That's my story. That's my truth. Br. And if you're in a similar situation, I hope my story gives you permission to fight for yourself too, to protect yourself. Br. To demand better. Br. To win. Br. Thank you for listening. Br. Thank you for being here. If this story resonated with you, if it helped you in any way, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I'm curious to know how many of us are out there. How many people understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to forgive? Hit that like button if you think standing up for yourself matters more than keeping the peace. Br. Subscribe to my channel, Bika. I share stories like this, real stories about real struggles and real victories every single day. And if you want to support this channel, there's a way to send a small donation. Anything helps, and I appreciate every bit of support. Br. 2 more stories are about to pop up on your screen. Choose whichever one speaks to you. Bar. Keep listening. Br. Keep learning. Br. Keep fighting for yourself. Br. You deserve it.